To anyone passing by, he looked ordinary, a middle-aged man in a coat, sitting quietly in a Paris park. But he wasn't resting. He was waiting. On his lap, secrets powerful enough to break a superpower. Not stolen, leaked from inside the Soviet machine. He wanted no money, no fame. He simply wanted the empire he served to fall. His name was Vladimir Vetrov, codename Farewell. And with a single dossier, the countdown to the Soviet Union's collapse began. Vladimir Vetrov was the kind of man the Soviet Union liked to show off. Fluent in French, charismatic, a KGB officer who had once worked in Paris under diplomatic cover. On paper, he was just a trade representative handling technology deals. In reality, he was a spy. He wore sharp suits, drove a Lada, and believed deeply in the system. But the glory days were behind him. Back in Moscow, he was buried in a lifeless desk job, writing intelligence reports no one bothered to read. The KGB had sidelined him. No field work, no status, no purpose. To the machine he once served with pride, he had become invisible. The weight of that obscurity crushed him. He had tasted importance, and now he was irrelevant. That's when the cracks began to show. He started drinking more. He lashed out. There were whispers of angry outbursts, of a mistress, of wild mood swings. It was a man collapsing under the quiet humiliation of being forgotten. And then came the assignment that changed everything. He was transferred to a department with access to the crown jewels, dossiers on every piece of Western technology the KGB had stolen. And that's when he saw it. The lies, the theft, the rot at the core. The Soviet Union didn't innovate. It copied. It stole. And it called that strength. Something inside him broke. If he couldn't matter as a loyal servant, he would matter as a traitor. He would burn it all down, from within. In early 1980, Vladimir Vetrov made his decision. He wrote a letter to French intelligence, offering information. The note was unsigned, vague, but intriguing, enough to get their attention. The French responded. A meeting was arranged in Paris. Vetrov didn't use a dead drop or disguise. Instead, he walked into a quiet cafe and sat across from a DST officer. He introduced himself plainly and opened his briefcase. Inside was proof. Stolen documents from the KGB copied by hand. Over the next 2 years, Vetrov passed more than 4,000 classified documents to the French. They detailed the Soviet Union's entire technology acquisition program, how the KGB targeted companies, planted agents, and smuggled secrets back to Moscow. He gave them names of over 200 Soviet operatives working under diplomatic cover across the West. Spies embedded in embassies, trade missions, scientific delegations. In 1981, France quietly shared the material with the United States. President Reagan was briefed personally. It wasn't just espionage. It was a roadmap of Soviet theft. Reagan approved a bold response. The CIA began feeding the Soviets deliberately flawed technology, software that would malfunction, hardware that would fail, quietly sabotaging Soviet progress from the inside. The results were devastating. One Soviet pipeline exploded in Siberia due to a corrupted control system. Other failures followed in aerospace, computing, energy, all traced back to the stolen tech Vetrov had exposed. Back in Moscow, Vetrov kept copying. The risk grew. During this time, he rekindled a past relationship with a woman named Ludmila, an old flame who now worked at a French company. At first, it was romantic, but over time, she noticed something was off. His mood swings, his paranoia, his sudden, inexplicable anger. She grew suspicious, and he grew reckless. By 1982, Vetrov was spiraling out of control. That spring, Vetrov attended a picnic organized by Ludmila's workplace, a French company operating in Moscow. It was supposed to be a casual, family-friendly event, but it took a dark, unexpected turn. Vetrov got into a heated argument with another man, reportedly over Ludmila. Witnesses later described it as sudden, violent, and deeply unsettling. In a fit of rage, Vetrov pulled out a knife and stabbed the man in the chest. The police arrested him immediately. At first, it looked like a crime of passion. But during his detention, Vetrov began behaving strangely, agitated, paranoid. That drew attention, enough that the KGB stepped in to investigate further. They searched his apartment, and that's where it all unraveled. Hidden among his belongings were handwritten notes, thousands of them. Classified documents copied word for word, names, operations, secrets, enough to reveal the double life he had been leading. He was unmasked, the man whom the French had once codenamed Farewell. He was tried in secret. The details never made it to public records, but insiders later described the proceedings as swift and cold. On January 23, 1985, Vladimir Vetrov was executed by firing squad. But by then, the damage had already been done. His files had exposed and dismantled the Soviet Union's most prized spy networks. Hundreds of operatives were recalled or expelled. Entire operations collapsed. And the rot he saw from inside was now devouring the empire he once served. He died a traitor. But to the West, he was a ghost. The man who set fire to the Soviet machine from within.